the civilian employees of the U.S. Air Force. They're not in the military, yet they take the same oath. They don't wear the uniform, but they stand shoulder to shoulder with those who do. They're patriotic, hard-working Americans. They are the everyday heroes of Air Force civilian service. Forces joined.
I'm Bob Hall, a marketing and public relations brand management specialist with AFCS. I retired from the Air Force after 28 years of service, and now I've been with AFCS for a little more than 4 years. I started on the recruiter side of the house and now work in marketing, but it's not about me. I'm joined by 3 of my team members from talent acquisition. They've been helping hire civilians for the Air Force for decades, and we're excited to bring their expertise straight to your living rooms this evening. First, we have Mr. Michael Brosnan. Mike, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Bob. And hello, everyone, and welcome to our AIM Hire webinar. I'm Mike Brosnan, and I am the Chief of the Talent Acquisition Division at Air Force Civilian Service. I've had a very, very long career, 32 years total, as of this February, and I can honestly say I have the best job in the Air Force, where we get to hire great talent just like you joining us tonight. Back to you, Bob.
Great. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Next, we have Eileen Chasen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eileen Chasen, and I'm the Talent Acquisition Team Chief for Cyber Recruiting. I started my Air Force Civilian Service career as a PAC intern. I've served for over 27 years, and I've been at various locations across the Air Force.
Outstanding. Thanks, Eileen. And waiting in the wings, I'm pleased to reintroduce Jessica Bartley. If you've been following us from the start, you'll recognize her from our first ever AIM Hire webinar. And you can catch all of our episodes at afciviliancareers.com/AIM Hire. Jessica?
Hi, everybody. It's great to be back. I'm Jessica Bartley. I'm currently a recruiter just with the Air Force Civilian Service. I have 25 years, at least 25 years across multiple components of the Air Force. I started off active duty, then later on transitioned into the Air Force Reserve. Actually was a full-time Air Force reservist, then later on went back to being a traditional reservist, doing the whole 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, and just have a full-time federal position now. So with all that, it's like 25 years and can't complain. I love my job.
Outstanding. Thank you all so much. And thank you to our audience for everyone joining us this evening. This should be a lot of fun. So let's dive in. Tonight, we'll be answering frequently asked questions in the following categories: resume tips, student programs, how to apply, transitioning to AFCS, acronyms, and wildcards. These questions will be pulled from what you submit this evening. We're also going to invite you to show off what you know by submitting your answers in the chat. Stay tuned because we're going to share QR codes that link resources, and we'll include polls for you to answer questions as well. Panelist who walks away with the most points this evening will earn bragging rights at every office party and team picnic from here on out. Eileen, let's get things rolling with you.
Well, I guess, Bob, I'll take resume tips for 200.
Excellent. Our frequently asked question on resume tips for 200 points is there anything that would disqualify my resume?
Well, there are a few things that would disqualify your resume right off the bat. So be sure your resume does not include photos, does not include your social security number. If we need it later, we'll ask for it. Avoid listing your birthday. However, include if you're a US citizen. That's really important, Bob.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Jessica, you're up next.
All right. I'm going to take resume tips for 100, Bob.
Okay, great. Our frequently asked question on resume tips for 100 points is there a preferred format for my resume?
Yes, there is. Preferred format, we'll use that a little loosely, but there is a federal style resume that just works really well, and it provides all the information that we need when we're reviewing a resume. We also have that link we're going to provide you as well on how to write a federal resume. So first of all, you want to make sure you're using month and year dates, and always include all your positions, even though the position may not be relevant to the position that you're applying for. A small little blurb about what you did would just be helpful. And if there's like small gaps in your employment, don't worry about that. Also, the most important is to always read the announcement and tailor your resume to what they're looking for. There is not a one-fits-all resume. There just is not. And I can just give you an example with, just always remember that if you don't say it, you didn't do it. Also, just don't worry about the page numbers as well. If you have to use 3 or 4 pages to tell them that you have the experience they're looking for, then absolutely do that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Absolutely. Your resume is you on paper. So telling the hiring manager all about you is so, so important. So thank you for sharing that, Jessica. Mike, we're over to you.
Hey, Bob, I'll take how to apply 101 for 100, please.
Okay, great. Our frequently asked question on how to apply 101 for 100 points is, where can I find jobs with AFCS?
You know what? That's a great question, and one that we get very, very often. The best place to go is to find our job map, which can be found on www.afciviliancareers.com. You scan the QR code right there. It'll take you directly to that link. But you can see on there, you can see the actual map, and it has pins. This will tell you where all our jobs that we're currently recruiting for are active. You click on the pin, and a drop down will show all the jobs currently listed. The other thing I was going to mention is when you go to our .com, where you want to go to is find a job. So it's /find-a-job. Back to you.
Yeah, very specific. Thank you. And I think that, I've just absolutely loved our interactive maps from the start, because candidates have such a, great tool there to find the jobs they're looking for. And I appreciate you talking about that drop-down box because that'll list all the positions at that location, and it's a link to apply. So we've made it very easy for you. So thank you for sharing that with us, Mike. Eileen, we're back over to you. What's your next pick?
Well, I'm going to take it up a notch and go for student programs for 400.
Ooh, she's going big.
Take it up a notch. I love that. Okay, so students for 400 asks, what career fields do you offer internships for?
Well, we're currently looking for students and recent graduates to support a variety of career fields. We have opportunities in cyber, civil engineering, contracting, and STEM, and so many more. You can see all the career fields available and learn more about our programs and apply on the spot when you visit afinterns.com. Sorry, afintern.com. Scan the QR code and it'll take you right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I just got to make a personal comment here, Eileen. I noticed that you put cyber first, being this, team chief for cyber, a little bias there. Just asking.
A little bit. We have lots of jobs right now for cyber. So anybody who's looking needs to go to afciviliancareers.com/find a job.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a lot. So Jessica, Eileen's turning up the heat. So what category will you pick next?
I'm going big now. Acronyms 400, Bob.
All right. So acronyms for 400 it is. And even though I don't think you need it, I'm going to phone our friends in the audience. Let us know what you think, what PSIP and PAC stand for by posting it in the chat. There's a quick poll for you. Give you a little bit to talk about there. Because PSIP and PAC, boy, I'll tell you, that's the Air Force for you, right? Acronyms. All the military does that.
Yes.
Well, outstanding. So there's what our audience thinks, Jessica. What do you think?
They did very well. And it's the second option. We say PSIP. PCIP stands for Premier College Intern Program. And PAC, the PAQ, stands for Palace Acquire. Real quick, PSIPs, the internship is a full-time paid summer internship. And you also earn leave as well. You can apply for between your junior and senior year. Then you have the Palace Acquire. It's a postgraduate program, and you need to apply within 2 years of graduating. So I always kind of recommend start applying about a year out, because as soon as you graduate, you can start the position if you're selected. These programs are amazing. You're going to be working with active duty and civilian individuals, and even sometimes you'll be working with other branches of military. You'll get mentored. You'll have training on the job. You'll be helping with projects, and just to help you earn some experience with the federal government. So I always encourage people apply early, and that way, just in case, you can tell them when you can start, so you don't have to wait. And you can apply on afintern.com.
There you go. Outstanding. And once again, the QR code's provided. So great response, Jessica. Mike, over to you. What will you pick next?
You know what, Bob? I can't see my score, but I just have a sneaky suspicion that I just got to catch up to the rest of the pack. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to take transitioning to AFCS for 400.
All right. Transitioning to AFCS for 400. Taking it big. It states, does my private sector experience transfer to a job with AFCS?
In short, absolutely. But here's the key. When you find the job or ideal job you're looking for, please read the announcement and focus on the skills and qualifications required. So if you're applying for a firefighter position, we want to make sure that you actually can do all the skills that are required of a firefighter. So if you've never been a firefighter, you're probably not going to do well. So when we say, does your private sector experience translate? Absolutely, as long as it's job related. If you've done the work several years ago, make sure that you include that in your resume. So yes, your experience counts, but please make sure that it makes sense for the job for which you're applying.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important to talk about that, because I know in some cases, especially some of our prior service folks, they had additional duties and things like that, and they don't think about that because it was just an additional duty. So you brought up a great point, Mike, in sharing that, any experience. So I appreciate that. So go ahead, let's take a look at that scoreboard. So Eileen's in the lead, 600 points. Mike Gudetsker tied in second, close behind with 500 points. Eileen, with that, you're up next.
Well, I guess I'll go a little easy on my colleagues, and I'll take transitioning to AFCS for 200.
All right. Transitioning to AFCS for 200 asks, are security clearances required for a job with the AFCS?
Well, we get this question a lot, especially in the cyber field.
Mm-hmm.
Not all positions require a candidate to hold an active clearance. But if it's a requirement, the position description or announcement will say so. We do require that all candidates be able to obtain a clearance. In order to be qualified to obtain a clearance, you must be a U.S. citizen. If you get into a role that eventually requires a clearance, the Department of the Air Force will fund the process.
Yeah, and thank you, Eileen, for sharing that. And I remember being on your team, you know, and that was, I used to tell candidates all the time when they would ask that, you know, the ability to obtain and maintain. Hey, that's the key right there. Don't rule yourself out because you don't have it currently. We're going to help you in that process. So thanks again. That's just really some helpful information. Jessica, we're back to you.
All right, since I'm behind, I'm going to go up. So I'm going to do how to apply for 300.
All right, how to apply for 300 asks. What is a hiring preference? You know, we're talking about the federal government.
So the federal hiring preference are different special qualifications for individuals, such as disability, spousal preference, veterans, and there's other federal protected demographics that, you know, can play in favor for different individuals. Example, a job with a veterans hiring preference would be considered for all veterans to apply before it does open up to the public. You can learn more about these hiring authorities on our website, the civiliancareers.com/careers. And there's also the QR code that's on the screen, but it kind of breaks down the different preferences and how they work into the different types of jobs and roles.
No, there's so much to you know, talk about with hiring preferences and stuff. And I just love the idea that we're providing that QR code so that our, you know, audience can just scan that and quickly go and find out so much more information. But I got to tell the panelists, you guys are just doing an outstanding job providing answers to these questions. So now, Mike, we're back to you.
You know what? I'm still a little bit behind the pack here, so I'd like to select students for 300.
All right, you got it. When is the best time to apply for the Premier College Intern Program and the Palace Acquire Program?
Absolutely, great question. So recruiters for our PSIP program typically review applications this time of year, December and early January. So really the best time to apply is between May and November, previous to December. So for this year, for this upcoming summer class of interns that we're currently reviewing, you should have applied between May and November. If you are a freshman in college and wish to look at being a PSIP in 2024, starting this May is the best time to apply. For our Palace Acquire and CopperCap programs, it's a little bit different. So this is for our recent graduates. So we have December grads and May grads typically, but we really fill positions for this group throughout the year. So the best time to apply is at any time upon graduation.
That's great. And I apologize because I didn't mention CopperCap. It was part of the question. So I'm glad, of course, you have all that knowledge. You knew to address that. So thank you. Eileen, we're back to you.
Well, this time I'm going to take resume tips for 300.
That resume is so important, isn't it? So resume tips for 300. It asks, how can I get in touch with a recruiter?
Well, this is probably the easiest thing to do because our recruiters are active on LinkedIn every day. You can also follow Air Force Civilian Service to see our recruiters post about vacancies. But everybody want to write this down? You can also reach out to our recruiters at a real email address, afcs@us.af.mil. Write that down.
Yeah, exactly. Take a picture of the screen. It's right there, right? Take a picture.
Work smarter, not harder.
There you go. Hey, I'm serious about that. So thanks, Eileen. That was just great. And, Jessica, I'm putting you back in the hot seat. It's over to you.
That's all right. I can handle it. I'm going to take a resume tips for 400, please.
Ooh, step it up to 400. Okay, so resume tips for 400 asks, how can I get my resume to stand out? What tips and tricks can you provide?
Okay. We're going to probably foot stomp a lot of this because you're probably going to hear the same thing. And if you hear the same thing, then I'm telling you, do you want to be considered for a position or do you want to get the interview? You don't always know how many people are applying for the job. So we're going to go back to the announcements. These are based on the knowledge, skills, and abilities from the position description that they're looking for. And this is what the hiring manager needs to have from the applicant. If you don't have the experience, then they cannot consider you. So just be mindful of that. It's, again, the announcements are checklist. Just do some mental highlighting in your head while you go over your resume. Did you address this? Nothing is assumed. And a great example, as I mentioned this earlier, but I kind of got sidetracked, but the IT world, there's so many subcategories. You have network, you have software, you have database. And again, when you get to those higher grade positions, you have to have the skill that they're looking for. We can't hire someone with a ton of network experience for a software developer. We cannot do it. So some people say, hey, but I can learn. But when you get to the higher grades, we really need to see the experience because we want to drop you in the seat and let you go and do amazing things for the Air Force. So I always tell, and I will say this, the individuals that have helped when they give me the job announcement, when we kick it up, I'm like 9 for 9 right now. All the ones who we helped with the resume got interviews. So that's how important it is.
Well, there's an answer right there. How can I get my resume to stand out? Contact Jessica. She's 9 for 9. and I gotta admit,
interview. Once you're in the interview seat, there's nothing I can do after that. But at least we can help you get to that point. If you do what I try to tell you, now I've had individuals who didn't. They're like, hey, I'm comfortable, and I'm telling you, they did not get the interview.
Yeah, no, and all kidding aside, it's so important to take a look at that knowledge, skills, and abilities. Like Jessica said, use it as a checklist. Don't assume that the person reading your resume is going to understand the difference between IT and software developer, because if you just say, well, I've been in IT for 20 years, it doesn't say that you've been in software, that you've done software development. So spell it out. If it's in there on the KSAs, go ahead and make sure that it's on your resume as well. And like I said, contact Jessica. She's outstanding, So
LinkedIn.
Anyway, so great insight. Mike, I'm leaving you hanging over there. Let's bring it back over to you. Mike, what category would you like to go for next?
You know what, Bob? I wish there was a category that said 9 for 9, but there isn't. So in that, transitioning to AFCS for 100, please.
All right, fantastic. So transitioning to AFCS for 100 asks, is military service required for a job with the AFCS? Now, before you answer, I'm going to put up that poll. Thank you. So the poll is up there. Let's give them just a moment to respond. Well, we get this a lot. I try to address it on every webinar. So let's see some of our past audience members. All right, outstanding. So Mike, you see the results there. Care to address it?
Well, you know what? Those who said no are spot on. Military service, past, present, or future, is not a requirement to be an Air Force civilian. However, if you become a civilian, you can actually serve as a reservist or a guard capacity while being a full-time civilian. So that's kind of the cool part, if you have that desire, but it's not a requirement.
Now, I'm going to go back to our introductions. We're not going to start the webinar all over, but we're going to go back to our introductions because Jessica, you talked about being in the reserve. Care to share some of your past experience serving as a reservist while working as a civilian?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of perks with being a reservist and working for the federal government. First of all, when I transitioned, it was, fairly easy. And employers are always very supportive when you have to take your military leave. So one perk is you get 120 hours of military leave. And then so every time you go on your military status, you're going to get paid while you're on military orders, but you're also going to be paid for the civilian time. So you have to put your leave in since you're not present for your federal job, but you get that leave for you. So you're getting paid, double dipping. Also, if you separated, there's options to buy back your military time and convert to civilian time. What does that do for you? It adds to your civilian retirement. So I bought 9 years. So by the time I started day one, I had 9 years of civil service. And that's why I'm at 25 plus, even though I've only been with the federal government for about maybe 15 years. I bought those 9 years back, so I got close to 25 years. And there's also other benefits that come with that, but those are just a few. And if you have questions about that transition or some other perks, just connect with me on LinkedIn. And I really need to I just saw something in the chat. I will not write your resume for you. If you have a job announcement that you want me to compare, I'm going to be brutally honest, and I will tell you, you will not qualify. But if I see potential, I will tell you where to help you with that information. I do not write resumes. Let me just make sure I clear that up, but I will help you.
That's great. But and Jessica, I really hate to burst your bubble here. No points for that extra answer. Once on the board, we just went to you. So no extra points. I
saw in the chat, so I was like, okay, wait a minute, hold on. I want them to be successful.
No, and you know what? That's where all the points are, right? Making our candidates successful. So, Eileen, we're going to go back to you. Where on the game board would you like to go?
It's my turn. Let me see.
It is.
I'll take how to apply for 400.
Oh, she is stepping up the game. She's right out there to 400. All right. So how to apply for 400? Great question here. How long does the recruitment?
Well, our goal actually is to have candidates selected and in the role within 80 days. This is changing, but right now that's what it is. This has been made easier through our direct hire authorities. You can find those positions on our hot jobs map, again, at afciviliancareers.com/find-a-job.
All right. Well, Jessica, we're going to go to you next as the board is catching up with us. All right. So
don't forget to do the scan. Everybody needs to make sure they scan those QR codes.
Yeah, and it's funny you should say that because I know I talked about it. Jessica talked about working smarter, not harder earlier, and that type of thing. I have to admit, I stole this from somebody. We know you have, to our audience, we know you have your phone with you. Everybody does. So there's no excuse not to be able to scan these QR codes. Just pick your phone up, hit that QR code. It's going to get you to where you need to be. So outstanding. So now, Jessica, earlier I said that you didn't get any points for the bonus, information that you gave and stuff like that. But you are up next for points.
All right, I'm going to do students for 200, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all. So students for 200. The question is, when am I eligible for the Palace Acquire program?
We've answered this a couple times, but within 2 years of graduating, so always apply about a year from graduation, but you do have some leeway if you just heard about us and you're like, I just graduated in May. Well, you can apply now. And if you're selected, you'll just have to start before that 2-year mark. However, for military members, there is some that you get 6 years, but it's going to be based on special circumstances. So, but again, we have a team of recruiters who deal with the interns and the postgraduate programs. So I would highly recommend contacting them and seeing how your eligibility, if you surpassed as a veteran, surpassed that 2-year mark, there might be some exceptions to the rules for you. So we want to make sure that we can, help you with getting the right information.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because some of our service members, they may complete their degree and still have a year of active duty service commitment or something like that. And that would only leave them with 1 year to apply. So there are some variances. So I'm really glad you brought that up. But the bottom line is that we look for 2 years after graduation. So thank you again for that. Mike, hadn't forgotten you. You're right there. So we're back over to you.
Bob, I was thinking earlier, you mentioned about one thing about the military is we have acronyms everywhere. And that is so true. We do use acronyms for everything. And in many cases, we use acronyms that are exactly identical for 4 or 5 different things. So we always have to ask the context, like put it in a sentence. Oh, you mean that ABC versus this ABC. So with that in mind, I'll take acronyms everywhere for 300.
All right. So there we are. So acronyms for 300 simply asks, what does TS-SCI stand for?
TS-SCI stands for Top Secret, Sensitive, Compartmented Information. So this is a type of security clearance that may be required for some of our positions, especially in the intelligence community and for a lot of our cyber positions. So we have different levels of clearances. Some just require a national check. Some are secret clearances, top secret, and then top secret SCI being one of the highest you can achieve, and takes the most extensive background checks that we have. But this gives you an idea of at least what it stands for, should you apply and see that. And it says that you may be required to hold or be able to obtain and hold a top secret SCI.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was about to throw some acronyms out there, but I don't want to go off the board. I don't, I go rogue a little every once in a while in these webinars. So I'm just going to kind of behave myself this time around, which means I'm going to bring it back to Eileen. What would you like to answer next?
Oh, I guess I'll go with how to apply for 200.
Okay, great. How to apply 101 for 200. When should I apply for a position in the Premier College Intern Program?
Well, it's been mentioned before tonight, and the hiring team for PSIPs starts sending acceptance letters out in December. So we recommend applying between May and November. Remember, you have to be either a sophomore moving into your junior year or a junior moving into your senior year to qualify for the PSIP program, the Premier College Intern Program.
Yeah, and here I go. Jessica said it earlier. If we say something more than once, it's probably important. So knowing, about the PSIP program, the PAC program, when to apply, it's so important, because we don't want anybody in our audience, any potential candidates, to miss out on some outstanding opportunities. And so, yeah, absolutely. Right up there, May to November, sophomore, junior year of college, hit the QR code, help you set up your future by helping us meet our mission.
Yeah.
All right, Jessica, we're back to you.
All right. Let's do acronyms everywhere for 200, please.
Absolutely. And this was what I have to say, this is what I almost spilled the beads on, because it's just one of those. All right. So this is a great one for our audience to answer too, though. We're going to ask in the poll. There it is. It's popping up. What is DHA? I have to admit that, there we go.
Perfect.
Our audience is so smart.
They are.
They're killing it. Well, it does stand for Direct Hiring Authority. We spoke a little earlier about it, but as far as, special hiring authorities, but DHA allows us to expedite the hiring process a little, so we can have more the ability to fill vacancies, especially if they're mission critical. So it just provides us a little bit more attention to get individuals into the seats, or at least I should say it helps the hiring managers get individuals into the seats. And you can find those vacancies on our afciviliancareers.com, find a job, because all of those should be under Direct Hiring Authority for the most part.
Absolutely. And yeah, like I said, I almost spilled this one earlier, only because as Mike was pointing out, there's acronyms everywhere and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And DHA also gets confused sometimes with the Defense Health Agency, which basically means you wouldn't be working for us. And unless you're in that field, you just really can't apply. It wouldn't help. So thank you for clarifying, and kudos to our audience for such an outstanding job answering what DHA stands for. I mean, we do have hundreds of vacancies, DHA vacancies, so definitely be sure to take a look, and you can subscribe to be notified of these positions as they could become available at afciviliancareers.com, /subscribe. Mike, we're back to you. Which category would you like to go to next?
It's one that we've talked quite a bit about tonight, and I think it's worth talking about again. So I'll take students for 100.
Yeah, we're going to close out the students category, and it's so important. So here's your question for 100 points. What opportunities are available for students?
Well, we've mentioned several of them tonight. I think above and beyond, or one of the most important is for you current college students, obviously the Premier College Intern Program. If you're a rising sophomore getting ready for your junior year, it's the time to apply. We do, in some cases, also hire graduate students into the PSIP program. So if you're in your first year of graduate school going into your second year, there are some opportunities as well, but not as many as it is for the undergraduate students. The Palace Aspire program, which is for our recent graduates. Okay, this is where we get the opportunity to develop you and outplace you into a permanent job. Our PSIP program, one thing we haven't mentioned, is a feeder program for our Palace Acquire program. Mm-hmm. So after you graduate from the PSIP program, the following year, we're going to more than likely offer you a job to come back as a Palace Acquire and or a Copper Cap. The Copper Cap program is strictly for our contract specialists. Lots of business majors apply for this, but it's open to several degreed programs. Contract specialists are our buyers. They're the folks that have to go out and figure out, hey, what do I need for the F-35, or even buying the F-35 and working with big companies like Lockheed. So contract specialists have a huge job to do. So they actually have their separate program called Copper Cap. We have other programs like the DoD SMART program that is open for STEM students. This is where you're in college currently, and they will actually pay for your degree. They'll pay for your graduate school, and in many cases, even PhD. So the best thing I can offer you is go to afciviliancareers.com. There's that QR code to scan. Again, I saw a text pop up earlier that the QR code wasn't working. Hopefully it is working. So give it a shot. But /current students. All of this information is under our student programs.
No, and it is. I mean, our student programs, bringing people into the Air Force Civilian Service right out of college, is so important to keep, the Air Force moving forward and providing these young individuals just an outstanding opportunity to put their degree to work. So thank you, Mike. Eileen, what will you pick next?
Wait, I guess I'm gonna pick transitioning to AFCS for 300.
All right, closing out that category at 300. So, question is, when am I eligible for employment after retiring or separating from the service?
That's a really good question, and we get it a lot. The standard is 180-day waiting period after retiring from service. If you're separating, there's no waiting period. However, when anyone who's leaving military service, you're not considered eligible for a federal competitive service position until you're 120 days from your date of separation or retirement. And that's under the VOW Act, VOW. You have to provide either a DD-214 or a certification from your MPS. Saying your character of service when you're actually going to be separating or retiring. If you apply before that, you will be considered ineligible.
Okay. No, it's one of the questions that we get so often because people are very familiar with the Air Force if they were serving in the Air Force, or they're familiar with the structure, if you will, if they've worn a uniform of one of the other branches. And so that's a very common question. And thank you so much for all that information, Eileen.
Bob, I did forget to mention that there are certain circumstances based on, of course, we always have exceptions or waivers.
Yeah.
So there are certain circumstances where the waiting period can be waived.
Okay, thank you. And I was just having flashbacks to my uniform days where we used to talk about there's a waiver for everything,
Exactly.
Right, almost. If it makes sense, can we get it waivered? That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we did talk about, the military service and the separating, whether it be retiring or separating. And Mike brought it up, but I do want to remind everybody that past, present, and future military service is not required for a position with AFCS. But chances are likely that you've been working alongside active duty and retired or separated airmen on your day job. Jessica, will you do us the honor of answering our final frequently asked question of the evening before we transition to the wildcard questions submitted?
It'd be my pleasure. Let's go for it.
I'm guessing acronyms everywhere. All right, well, so for 100 points, the final acronym is AFCS.
Ooh, Air Force Civilian Service. That's what AFSC stands for. That's AFS. Yes, my military brain sometimes kind of goes and takes different acronyms. But some fun facts about the Air Force Civilian Service: we employ over 170,000 civilians within 600 occupations, supporting the United States Air Force all around the world. So, we just don't have positions here; we have positions overseas as well. So, just supporting the mission.
And that's so true. And it is funny because, when I'm walking through the supermarket or whatever, and I talk about working AFCS, and people are like, huh? And then, I have to ask, what that Air Force Civilian Service really is, but We're going to move on to the wild card portion of the evening. But before we do, let's see where we stand on the scoreboard. I think I saw it pop up just a second. So where is that scoreboard at?
Boom.
All right. Dun, dun, dun. All right. So, Mike, we're left off in your role, so to speak. You were next on the hot seat. So which wild card question would you like to answer?
You know what? I'll take wild card for 100.
All right. So wild card for 100 from our audience is, what are the jobs in demand with the ASCS right now?
Well, that is a great question. Let's say all jobs are in demand, but the truth of the matter is some jobs are more in demand than others. And what I mean by that is some are actually harder to fill just because of the. So I would offer you that any job in the STEM career field, any job in the medical career field, any job in the cyber, although one could argue that's part of STEM, are certainly in demand and will always be in demand. But believe it or not, we are the United States Air Force, and yet we have a shortage for civilian pilots. We have to compete against the airlines, so pilots are in demand. Our aircraft maintainers are in demand.
Yes.
Our officers are in demand. Our civil engineers that keep our HVACs going, and plumbers. So virtually every single occupation is in demand.
Yeah, no, and you're absolutely right. There's so many positions, and you know, when you're in that role and you're looking to your right or to your left, and there's an empty space, you know, and you're thinking, hey, why can't they hire somebody? You know, and so I would say to our audience, regardless of which, you know, career field you're in currently, you know, take a look, and you're probably going to find something on our job board at asciviliancareers.com/find a job, right? You're going to find something that's a good fit for you. All right. So again, just don't ever rule yourself out, or don't think that, oh, they don't need me. Yeah, we do. So thank you, Mike, for sharing all those positions. Anyway, I'll just go on and on and on. But I'm going to turn it back over to the panelists. Eileen, you're up next.
Well, I'm going to try wildcard for 300.
Oh, see, Eileen always wants to go big, which is something I like about her, actually, because she's willing to step out there. So wildcard for 300 asks, what kind of assistance does the ASCS provide for higher education?
Wow, that's a really, really good question, because we have lots of different ways to help with education. One of them is we have tuition assistance programs, but we also have, for some of our PAC programs, especially in the STEM field, we actually pay for the master's degree for our STEM PACs. And while they're going to school, they actually get a salary from us as well. So we pay books and tuition, they get their normal salary, so long as they complete their master's degree within 12 months. And other PACs also have the ability to have tuition assistance. It's a little bit different, but there's a lot of support for tuition assistance for higher level education. Also, Mike Brosnan talked earlier about the SMART program, and they also provide money and stipends for candidates or employees under that program. So we support educational programs across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you know, and this question came from the audience, so it's a great question. But education is so important, you know, for members of the Air Force Civilian Service, to the point where you know, it's not just going back to a college or university working on degrees, but you're encouraged to go out and, you know, get the certifications. Or I know that I've had online courses that Eileen, as my supervisor, approved. So I've taken some online courses just to get better in the role that I was currently in. And so I said it for years and years, and I'll continue to preach it, is, you know, no matter who pays for your education, no one can take it away from you. And so I really appreciate that the Air Force Civilian Service does pay, you know, for those higher education opportunities. But again, I regress. It's not about me. Jessica, this is your last question to answer before the scores are locked in. What will it be?
Well, I'm taking the 400, Bob. Wild card for 400.
All right, wild card for 400. Great question here. Why should we look at afciviliancareers.com for jobs instead of USA Jobs?
I answer this question all the time. So the majority of the positions that are on our .com come with DHA. And what we're doing is we're working directly with hiring managers to help them fill these positions. And so there's a little bit more of a relationship that we're helping them, so we can help individuals to potentially find that talent that they cannot find. Sometimes USA Jobs has a completely different team that manage their positions. They have it out there for a week or two, depending on how critical the position is. And the person goes through the resumes and then provide all the resumes that make it through the cut for the position. With the USA Jobs, you know, you got to be very careful. You really have to read those announcements, because you have to make sure you provide all the documentation that they're asking for. And sometimes if you don't provide the right documentation, you may not make your resume may not make it to the hiring manager. Where we're directly working with the hiring manager, we're looking at resumes and we're going to collect those documents. So it's just a little bit of a different process and just a different team. So I always please go to USA Jobs, because sometimes if the position's not direct hiring authority, it's going to be on USA Jobs. So please go out there and apply. But I'm going to foot stomp. You have to read those announcements and make sure your documentation is exactly what they're asking for. I cannot stress that enough, because I want you to make the cut. And again, we're always here to help and answer any questions. But most of our positions that our recruiters, and by the way, there's a team of recruiters posting these jobs on the .com. So I'm one of many, many, many. So definitely go to the hot jobs and see what you can find out there. But please go to USA Jobs as well, because don't miss out on an opportunity.
Yeah, no, and thank you, Jessica, because, you know, we're not, I mean, everybody wants good talent, and I can't discount that, okay? But if you're looking at Air Force specifically, one of the biggest differences really is, I'm going to say, getting lost when you go out to USA Jobs. Just in the idea that, hey, I want to become part of the Air Force Civilian Service. I want to work on my local Air Force base, or I want to go and work at the Air Force base. And they get on the USA Jobs and they get lost, so to speak, with, you know, finding out that, oh, well, wait a minute, that's with the Department of Forestry, or that's with the IRS. And I won't pick on the IRS, but, you know, our website, afciviliancareers.com, is dedicated specifically for Air Force positions.
Yes,
don't leave yourself out of the others, but when you want to be part of our team, that's where you need to go. So we do have one wild card left on the board. Boss, I'm going to bring it over to you. So Mr. Brosnan, what do you think? Wild card for 200? Can I throw that out at you?
Yes, throw it out there, Bob.
Okay. And please, I didn't write the question. Don't let this affect my performance review. But the question is, Is there an age limit? We're asking Mr. Brosnan if there's an age limit.
Is there an age limit which way? This is a great question. So there is an age limit as far as a minimum coming in. So if you're coming into Air Force Civilian Service, you do have to be of working age. So every of one of our announcements will say that you must be of legal working age. We do have some youth programs, some summer hire programs where we bring in some of our younger folks, 15, 16-year-olds that are lifeguards for our swimming pools during the summer. Those times. So, but that's part-time work, that's seasonal work. But for the most part, for the professional jobs, for our blue-collar jobs, you have to be of legal working age. So is there a maximum age? Absolutely not. I'm only 22 years of age, and so I've been working here for 32 years. So, just kidding. But there is no maximum age. There are certain occupations that you do age out. Firefighters, and those sorts of occupations. There's a few of those that you do actually have a maximum age, and you're supposed to either A, retire, or B, move to another career field.
Right. Thank you so much. So there you have it. You know, all the questions have been asked and answered. We do have recruiters behind the scenes continuing to answer our questions in the Q&A, but our scores are locked in. So let's see who gets those bragging rights. I can't do a drum roll. Oh, Eileen with 2,300 points.
Congratulations.
Behind 2,100.
This
Mike
was
locked in. What's that?
This was fixed.
Yeah. You know, and it's funny because typically doesn't the boss win? Well, Eileen was my boss, and so.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for that.
I didn't choose the categories. Y'all did a fantastic job. And thank you so much to everyone for joining and participating in our first game show. We hope you enjoyed yourselves as much as we enjoyed ourselves here on the panel. You learned about some incredible opportunities the AFCS has, in addition to getting some resume tips, hearing about our student programs, and of course, how to apply. If you didn't hear it enough, you can get more information and application links to apply for our positions on the afciviliancareers.com website. It's just a reminder to join us again next month.
Oh, and note, Jessica does not write resumes.
And any recruiter can be contacted. If you find them on LinkedIn, reach out to them. They're there to help you.
Yeah. Find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, for more tips and hot jobs.
And go to afciviliancareers.com. Every
Absolutely.
Air Force has that we're actively recruiting for will be on there. Even if it's on USA Jobs, it will be on that map.
And somebody asked about Space Force. Space Force also has a job map out on afciviliancareers.com. So Space Force is part of the Air Force, so we support the Space Force.
Yeah, no,
That's
see,
awesome.
I'm telling you, we've got a one-stop shop on that website. And to our audience members, if you didn't scan the QR code, write it down. We've said it so many times. afciviliancareers.com. Thank you so much for joining us. That's really all the time that we have for this evening, and hope to see you join us again next month. Have a great night.
Happy New Year. Good night.
Happy New Year. Good night.